we get away from that when they began, the more it seems like they're using black people in quote unquote diversity as a token and as a marketing ploy. Because when AEW first launched, they couldn't wait to tell you about the black woman executive they have. I can't tell you how many.
Jobber Nation, welcome to a late night episode of the JTP Lounge. As always, I'm Janelle for HR here with Wilkins and Mrblacc, and we have a very, very special guest with us this evening. I've been waiting for this for like 2 years, believe it or not. But before we get started and we let our guest introduce himself, we want to let everyone know that once again, Jobber Slam is available on Title Match Network. If you were not there for our historic show, make sure you can watch it on Title Match Network. It is free right now with a trial period, so you can watch that. Cheap plug for ourselves and Battle Club Pro. But no further ado, let our guest introduce himself, because I can't do it. Like he does a phenomenal job introducing himself every week. So let the viewers and listeners know who you are.
Well, I think that was a good enough job introducing me there, and I really appreciate you for that intro. My name is Alfred Konuwa, right for Forbes. I'm here on the Wrestling Inc. podcast, and I also have a YouTube channel, Pro Wrestling Bits, which has gotten some traction recently because of some issues that I've brought up and discussed, and I'm very happy.
Because they were valid. They were valid.
I really appreciate hearing that. I feel a lot of people feel that way, and even for those who don't, I'm glad that I've been able to have these conversations with people.
Well, where should we start first? I think we start get the elephant out the room first. Just recently, if you don't know, our dear friend Alfred here did a video called "All." What was the title again? What was the title?
All Elite White People.
That is what the cover said. It was about how Adam Cole would thrive in the aggressively white AEW, which I joked, all elite white people.
He's also a comedian, but he was spitting a little bit of facts on this. So he spoke about how all elite wrestling is pretty much white. But I give some pushback on this one.
Sure.
Because I did say that the roster is very diverse. It's a very talented and diverse roster. I will say the championship part of the company is very white. We will say that. I think that they had, people will argue, they will say Scorpio Sky was tag team champion, but I don't count that. I count it, but it was very short-lived. Nyla Rose was women's champion, but they couldn't stand the heat. I don't care what nobody said, they couldn't stand the heat. They had a transgender champion, and they got scared. You can count a couple of their women's champions that were Japanese, but they didn't do the work of their women's division is trash, so they didn't do the work of connecting that women's division. So the floor is all yours for a second. You explain your point on this.
Sure. You know, it's funny, Sir Wilkins, you said, I'm going to push back. The champions are just white. That's my point. I'm not saying all white people. I'm not saying AEW is all white. I'm saying all elite white people. That's why it actually connects so well. The most elite people, they tell you that. The group, the elite, all white people. The pinnacle, all white people. Like, they tell you that the people right now who are being pushed in AEW are aggressively white. And the reason that I am commenting on it and the reason that I'm going to be so outspoken about it is because, to your point, there are so many talented minorities and whatnot. And yes, just to clear the air, I have a pro-black agenda. Some of the pushback I've gotten is, well, you just want black people to succeed.
Say it.
Yep.
No, yes.
Yep.
Say it louder for those in the back. It's
Hell
so
yes.
black. Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to hide this at all. As a black person who's watched wrestling my whole life and enjoyed all kinds of different wrestling, it just feels better when people who look like me are succeeding, especially when they're talented enough to do so. So my point in this was I was kind of looking at the Adam Cole situation, and I was hearing a lot of the same takes. So we got to go to AEW because he would have this good match with this guy and this good match, and Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and his friends with the Elite and this, that, and the other. And something triggered to me is like, Also, he's white, and those are the people who they're pushing right now. I'm not saying AEW's got this racist agenda. They hate black people. They hate but I do want to point this out because nobody, other than us, this is the kind of stuff that I talk about with people like you, people like and a lot of my other friends who are black who watch wrestling. These are the kind of things that we kind of bring attention that does not get that national mainstream attention. And because I have a little bit of a platform, I decided that this is something that's important to me to talk about and to me to realize that in all of the reasons that Adam Cole should go to AEW, which I even noted is they're doing a good job in terms of booking the product. One of the reasons to me is that is just a company right now that is pushing a certain type of person, and Adam Cole checks all those boxes, not the least of which is that he's white.
So I want to know how you came up with the white people scale that you had in the video. I thought it was very particular. It was a scale of like, and then Kenny Omega was like on one side, and then Young Bucks on the other side. Can you break down your scale?
The spectrum of whiteness. It just I really don't know how it came to me. It was just I just saw. I was trying to make the point, I guess, and I wanted to articulate the point, but I thought it'd be funnier to make the point in the scale is that AEW is diverse just on a spectrum of whiteness in terms of the top of their company and who they push. They've got all kinds. It's not the same type of white person. They've got, your gothic whites. They've got your hipster whites. So I thought like that could be a good scale. That'd be a good to illustrate that in order. Because sometimes with race, as you know, when you're explaining race to people, a lot of whom are white, you kind of got to, as much as I hate to admit this, you got to spoon feed it a little bit and make it a little funnier so that they can understand it better, so they can know the point that I'm making instead of trying to ignore it or trying to distract themselves from it. And I do think that the spectrum of whiteness, while it did piss a lot of people off, a lot of people seem to enjoy it as well in terms of illustrating the fact that look at the spectrum of white people they're able to push. You're telling me that they can't do this with other people that are in their company?
So who do you think should be up top, though? Like, let's say, for instance, you get the pencil or you become the booker. Who would you put in that main event or in that championship space?
I have no idea. That's a question for AEW HR and the writers. I'm not booking this territory. You want to pay me to book this territory? Then I'll book the territory. I'm just saying what I realized. Now, if you're forcing me to answer this question, I personally think that Jade Cargill is the next Rock. She's going to be a mainstream star with or without AEW. Like one of these days, she's going to be in movies. She's going to be just what Rock and John Cena and all them are doing. Jade Cargill is going to be of that vein. Whether or not AEW is able to recognize that while she's here, it's going to be on them. So Jade Cargill, absolutely. I understand that there are people in AEW who aren't in position to get that push or maybe don't have the experience or whatnot. But, it's on it. You cannot convince me that there aren't people or they're just not many black people. They're minorities. Like, listen, you're in Jacksonville, okay? You're in Jacksonville, Duval County. You're in Duval, and you have the whitest wrestling company in the world? That's not acceptable. Will Hobbs is great and whatnot, but, my job is not to lay out who I think should be pushed. I'm not a booker. I'm not a writer. I'm a columnist. I'm an opinion guy. So if I watch AEW and I see, boy, a lot of their champions, a lot of their world champions, a lot of people who Tony Khan spends money on their theme music. Is he buying the Migos? Is he buying the library of Tupac? No. He's buying the Trogs and Baltimore and the Pixies. Like he's telling you with his wallet who he cares about. And I'm going to be here to comment on it. If they want to stay as white as possible because it is working for them, listen, it's great for my comedy. Okay, as a comedian, I'll talk about it every single week. But if they do want to kind of assimilate and they want to start pushing different people, that would be fine too. But what's working for them is working for them right now. But I'm not going to shut up about it.
I mean, this is how I kind of see it. It's just wrestling in general. Again, I'm not here to to take AEW side, but some people may argue that AEW was here to start a revolution. Cool. I definitely understand that whole concept. But when you are a company in the first year and a pandemic hits, it's just like you kind of got to give companies a little slack. Is there excuse not to have diversity among the champions? No. But it's not like there's a high turnover rate when it comes to their champions. It's not like in WWE where the tag team champions always get changed hands so quickly. Right now, it's a storyline with the whole Young Bucks. So, have they been defending the title against people of color? Yes. The championship-wise, has Kenny defended against someone of color in AEW? No. But he had defended himself against Moose. And the ending, it shows that how he couldn't defeat Moose on his own because he needed help. So right now, Impact, most likely Moose is going to get that championship, probably take the championship off of him. But I definitely understand what you're saying, though. But also, I always got to see what certain fans were saying that AEW just started. So it's easy always just to say, hey, white. But how about when you go to local indie events, it's a whole bunch of white champions. You understand? Or when your black champion is champion, why do you have a white manager for? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So it's to me, it's a bigger issue. And it's not just AEW, it's a big issue in general. For example, Jobbertears, shout out to us. Why did it took us to have Big Swole from AEW versus Tasha Steelz? It should not have to take us to do that, but we did it. So I really think there's a bigger issue greater than AEW when it comes to the whole colorism. I don't say color, but the whole race issue. It's a wrestling issue. It really is. And a lot of black people, let's be real, don't support other black wrestlers. A lot of us would do it. Oh, he's too dark. I can't support him. You understand? He got to be light skinned. So within our own community, we have colorism that we have to deal with. So there's a lot of issues that we have to deal with in the world right now. So it's kind of like, damn, if you damn, we do, we damn if we don't. For example, if my brother speaks out against a black person, he's a coon, he's a racist, all of that. So definitely it's a lot of it's a lot. So I definitely understand what you're saying. I definitely see your POV on that with everyone's POV. But I just say, here are my POV that we still got a lot to grow as people within this community.
For sure. And I understand what you're saying, and I love that. And I love the diversity of thought among black people, because I agree with you. I'm sure all of you can relate to the fact that black people aren't a monolith, and I hate the idea that we all think one way, we all support one cause, and I absolutely completely see what you're talking about. And to the point about that it's new, I mean, you did also touch on this in your point in terms of, even though AEW is new, it's still wrestling, and wrestling is caked in a lot of racism. So I'm not going to give them the chance to slack. I'm not going to not hold their feet to the fire. And also, AEW does a really good job, I think, of long-term storytelling, telegraphing to you who they have short-term plans for, who's hot right now, and who they have long-term plans for. And if you see how this company is set up, if you look into the future, because they book really well, everything that's happened over the past year or so in AEW, I've seen coming, because they've done a good job at getting somebody ready for a moment, getting Kenny Omega ready for that world title a year in advance, and then now he's world champion. Who are they getting ready right now? Right now, it's structured where it's like your first generation whites, which is your Kenny Omega and your Young Bucks and all these guys. Then you got the next generation whites. The second generation, it's your Orange Cassidy, Jungle Boy, who almost beat Kenny Omega. You got MJF, he's really young and he's up and coming. That's your neck. And then you've got your Caucasians in negotiations. It's your Adam Coles who might be coming. It's your CM Punk who might be coming. So this whole company at the top is being set up for generations of whiteness, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I don't see it. So yes, they just started, but even though they just started, I'm seeing that the direction is going one way, and also the reason it took WWE 60 years to crown the first black champion is because nobody really raised these issues for a while. But now that you have people like us, now that you have a lot of different voices who are able to, at the very least, talk about these issues, not all have the same opinion about it, at the very least talk about these issues, then good. We should be doing it in year 2 of AEW so that they don't get away with 60 years of not doing this.
So this is my thing. I have no problem with AEW. They call Janelle and I the AEW haters on this podcast, and MrBlacc the AEW savior. But this is one thing I will say. The problem really is, who's your executives? Your executives are a bunch of white boys. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying they're a bunch of racist white boys. I'm not saying they're a bunch of bigots that run the company. But they only have their view. They only have their idea. They don't have somebody else with a whole different type of view and a whole different outlook on how wrestling should be. And they don't have nobody really black that's really working up top. So I think that's really the problem. The ironic thing about it, funny, shout out to the Enemies podcast. They pulled up a quote that Kenny said. I think it was them, where he said, basketball has a ton of black players that are dominating the sport. Why isn't wrestling the same way? He said that in a quote. but he never lived up to that quote.
Right.
And he talks about his biracial daughter, and yet he still hasn't shown more black wrestlers. Like Ricky Starks, you see a little bit of him with Taz's, little squad, whatever. He has the FCW title and everything of that nature. But besides that, you're really not seeing anybody else that's really elevating like Ricky Starks. Red Velvet, you can kind of see that she's probably going to be in the title picture probably later on. But their women's division is a mess, and they're slowly starting to get that together.
She has the title shot at Rampage, which I
but
think
the thing
was
about
a smidge rushed because they could have built her on Dynamite, because that's kind of like always been my issue, is a lot of like their build-ups is not on Dynamite. So for someone like me that may not always catch a Dark or a Revolution or a Rampage or whatever, I'm lost. Like I'm just like, okay, how come she just is to come up and make his face, push her, but then get pushed back? Like where are we going with this? So like my issue at times is like as the long-term storytelling does happen, it doesn't always happen on their main platform. And that's where it kind of gets lost in translation for like a casual fan that may pop on and be like, oh, what's going on? But then if that's the only thing they watch, just like how I know a ton of people that only watch Raw and SmackDown and don't watch NXT. Right. And they get confused when they see, because I'm always going to call him Killer Cross. They get confused when they see him on Raw and they're like, well, what's he doing here? And not seeing that they're trying to introduce him in a different way that they haven't really done for many superstars that always gets called up. And then they like, what happened? Who is this? What do they do? So it's just, I think overall it's a great time in wrestling. I think there's so many opportunities, especially for people of color. Like we have tons of friends on the indie scene. And our number one thing, especially with us doing the show, was there's no excuses. Like you can't sit there and be upset. Like Scorpio Sky, that whole thing aggravates me because it's like
Scorpio Sky doesn't want to be a star.
Really? Why do you say that?
I don't think he wants to.
The hunger, but then don't tease it and put him in that platform where now you have us as a fan of color like excited for a moment, and then you rip the rug from under us. You're like, what the fuck? Like, I thought he just grabbed the brass ring. What happened?
Literally. But I don't think he really. This is my personal opinion. I could be 100% wrong. When they were like, yo, you're like the first black tag team champ, he kind of like, nah, it's not that serious. And I think I personally, this is just my feeling of it, I don't think he wants to be that top guy. I think he's comfortable in where he's at, get his check, and go home. Like, there's no, and I could be wrong, I'm just assuming. I just feel like he's okay where he's at. He doesn't want to be that guy. He likes his tag team wrestling. He likes where he's at. Okay, I'm good. That's the vibe I get from it. Once again, I don't know him personally, but that's the vibe I get. I could be 100% wrong. Maybe he wants to be AEW champion, but I don't feel like he really cares. I feel like he likes where he's at and he's good. But you guys can tell me if I'm wrong or not.
I feel like Ethan Page wanted it more. I always thought that Scorpio Sky just played the background in general. Because think about it, he was in SCU for so. You know what? I don't think so. It's him adjusting to him doing stuff kind of on his own. Because when he spent the majority of his career within a trio, it's going. Not everybody going to take that adjustment period very well. You understand? Do I think that he wants to be a star? I don't know. Like honestly, I really don't know because he probably feel that way right now. But you don't know what kind of mental he's going through. You know what kind of stuff he's going through backstage in general. She's like, you know what? It is what it is, though. I make my exit and I'm out. So
the white boys run the place. That's what. So then he's like, I'm gonna chill out here.
Right. And I kind of see that. Just to answer your question about the whole AEW situation with the whole dark, and I see that AEW has a bad habit of not connecting the shows together because it just it is what it is though. Because WWE used to do that sometimes back in the day where they would have when Superstars first came out, right? Shout out to Superstars. where they actually have legit matches where they say, "Hey, go check out Superstars because it's Shane McMahon versus Ray Orton," or it was the Shield versus the Wyatts on WWE main event. So let's go and advertise that. WWE did a good job of advertising service, even back in the day where it was Chris Benoit versus William Regal. It was a Saturday Night Metal or something like that. It was the first ever time someone ever bled on that platform. So WWE did a great job connecting the B shows and the C shows to the main roster. AEW don't do a good job of it. You understand? Like, when it's profitable, they may show it, but they don't do it consistently enough. And the one thing I realized they don't do is they don't have high packages no more. I remember when Big Swole first came, you saw a high package. Shout out to Big Swole for wearing our shirt at the end of the video. You saw a high package, see who she was as a package. So AEW has a bad job of connecting superstars when they go on Dynamite and now Rampage. So my thing is this way. I always preach it. I keep on preaching. Shout out to Shane Taylor. When it comes to us, we gotta do stuff for ourselves. You understand? Us throwing Jobber Slam, bring an insurance spotlight to these wrestlers that we end up having. That's why I tell everybody among us, support your local indie, support your black wrestler. You understand? Support. And when the black voice does rises, don't hate. Get behind them. That you get behind the Simon Millers of the world, the Dave Meltzers of the world, all these white boys in the world. Get behind them. But a lot of us don't because we too dark. So again, it's a lot of us problems in there too. But a lot of people don't want to address it because it's always easier to say, let's blame someone else. And if you go outside of wrestling, how many times have black people will sit there and say that, yo, the system did this to me, instead of saying, yo, F this, I'm going to go out and get this shit. A lot of us don't do that. So, again, it's kind of tricky because if that's the case, you should get on every other wrestling promotion. But a lot of us don't because AEW is the new kid on the block. So it's easy just to target that new kid. Because for years, like you said earlier, we let WWE rock for years. But now we already said something because us is rising up. Go ahead.
But I think when it comes to the reason why people get at AEW, this is something I've always said is you came out the gate saying we're a revolution.
Yes.
Okay.
That is the issue with me. If you were just like, yo, we're AEW, we're a new company, all right, cool. I ain't mad at it. But you literally said you're a revolution. And the revolution is going to be televised. And we're watching it, and it's the same exact thing that every other company has done for years. Yes, they sprinkled on Nyla Rose. They had Sonny Kiss at your freaking press conference, and we're all like, oh my God. All of us on this podcast know Sonny Kiss personally. So I ain't gonna lie to you, it kind of stung a little bit when you don't see him on TV and getting developed as a character and as a wrestler. But you had him at your freaking press conference. You elevated him all the way to the top, and he fell on his face. You barely ever see him. They do something with Joey Janela, which had, I ain't gonna lie to you, had potential. They did a couple vignettes with it. They did some stuff on Dark, and that was it. Nothing on the main show. It is the same thing as every other company has done for years. Don't get me wrong. They teased us with some ethnic stuff. It's like, you know what? You go to your white friend's house, right? And they got some Kool-Aid, right? And like, yo, they got Kool-Aid here? Yo, this shit gonna be good. And this shit don't got that much sugar. It ain't the diabetic Kool-Aid that you expected.
So, let me ask you a question. You talk about they didn't have no revolution. What if they did it in a way that you didn't expect them to do it? You put emphasis on that revolution. You in your head, you developed in your head that it should be this way. But the thing about it,
hold on, because I'll say it. Because the revolution is supposed to be something different. You're supposed to change the game. The only thing that they did, and I will say that they added competition to the game. And if that's your way of changing the game, okay. But your whole thing that they kept pushing is that this is something different from what you're regularly used to. At the end of the day, it really is the same thing. It's really a lot of the same storyline that we remember because wrestling repeats itself. You have a bunch of white dudes up top. You have this thing, and this forbidden door that they're talking about has been done plenty of times. This ain't nothing new. My whole thing is you have the Latinx in your federation. You got blacks, you got transgenders, you got gays. I'm not saying make them all champions, but make them into reputable characters on your TV show. That's my thing with the Revolution, because the thing about it, yes, they're doing stuff with the independent scene, but WWE has done that for years. They're doing it on a larger scale, but they still have done that for years. Because NXT was like their little independent thing where they brought indie guys in and stuff like that. Independent guys are always on WWE TV. They just get jobbed out all the time. They get their check and go home. They may spotlight it a little bit now with AEW, but at the end of the day, hey, we're all friends with independent wrestlers. What do they do on Dark? They go there, they job out, take their pictures, put some stuff on social, and go home and collect the check. So nothing is really new.
So you said that
you're talking about the Revolution. The way to see quickly in Revolution.
Wait. Let go ahead, Alfred.
Which is really cool. It wasn't just them saying revolution. Like, they were borderline arrogant about how woke and how diverse and progressive they were going to be. And the further we get away from that when they began, the more it seems like they were using black people and quote-unquote diversity as a token and as a marketing ploy. Because when AEW first launched, they couldn't wait to tell you about the black woman executive they had. I can't tell you how many times people in and out, privately and publicly, would come to me, we've got the first black woman executive in AEW history. Look how black we are. We're going to pay our women. And so they wanted to be marketed as the left-leaning kind of company that leans into the revolution, into being progressive. You want to know what happened to that black woman executive? Because this kind of got swept under the rug. She got N-bombed off of Twitter. Cody's words, not mine. A bunch of racist AEW fans, and I'm not saying they're all racist. I'm saying this black woman historical executive was a public-facing employee, and they couldn't wait to tell her that she was the first black executive. Let me tell you that. She got run off of Twitter. She had to quit Twitter due to racist tweets, and that kind of tells you how far behind. I think AEW realized how far behind it really is in terms of the society being ready to embrace that much blackness, because Brandy Rhodes, unfortunately, and I know she's had a child, which is great for her, and she's still somewhat involved with that company, but she's not the public-facing figure that she was, or that they planned for her to be, it seemed like, at the beginning.
You see, now, let me put a pushback, right? Maybe the revolution in the way that you may not think it. You put too much emphasis, it got to be this way. But in other words, I kind of see it this way. When's the last time you saw two women doing like a hardcore match on television? In the U.S., how bloody that shit was. You haven't seen that. Oh, how about this? When you see Nick Gage go against Jericho on screen, or when you see Jeff Cobbs coming in for real quick, when you see that dude, the one that we started to go to sleep, the original one, Kenta coming over there. You understand? Again, y'all dudes, people in general, have this thing when it comes to wrestling. If it's not this way, then it's not it. How many times that storyline will go on, wrestling in general? Oh, it's trash. Why is it trash? Because in my head, I think it this way. I'm just pushing back to show you that they did change the game a little bit, because now you see niggas actually try to kill each other on Wednesday night. Cool. Now, when like it was them versus the Inner Circle versus Blood and Guts on natural screen, that was bloody ass hell. Even WWE said that it set the business back 10 years. So the revolution didn't happen exactly how it happened, but in a way, it has changed the game. Because, yes, a lot of stuff in life, and this not even talking about wrestling, in life is mother effing the same exact way. For example, success. What all successful people say, sleep, dedication, blah, 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 blah. It's the same formula. So I understand what you're trying to say, though, but when like people try to change the game, everyone complains. I get you. I 100% do get you. I do get that. But at the end of the day, though, son, I'm not trying to be some kind of coon, some kind of savior.
No, not at all.
Fucking back. Nah, I'm not. But I like to say a different POV. Because in my head, shoot, you got niggas who haven't watched wrestling coming back to this. Like, I like this. AEW feels like a wrestling company. WWE feels like an entertainment company with different pick and choose characters. You understand? And Impact is the only one, to be honest with you, it's the only one got true revolution diversity, but nobody watches it. Because let's be serious.
Actually, also Ring of Honor.
Again, Ring of Honor is just, I get it.
all these wrestling companies, it's Ring of Honor, it's Impact, it's WWE. A lot of these, I think AEW is the one company that really, that's why it stands out to me so much in terms of the excellence at the top. But I will say two things can be true. I am not anti-AEW. We live in
nobody is.
That people will say that because I have a criticism about AEW, well, then he must say, I like it. And I made an example in this in my video where I love the Golden Girls. It's like one of my favorite shows ever. But it's a very white show. You know what I mean? And despite the fact, even though they don't, I would have liked to see more black people on the show, but they have a formula that worked for them for years. And that seems to be where AEW is going right now. So,
just like Friends took the formula for living single.
Right. It stole the formula.
But nobody likes it.
I'm a living single guy. I hated Friends, but
I like Seinfeld, so I'm white as hell when it comes to that. Seinfeld's one of my.
I love Seinfeld. Seinfeld's
one of my favorite shows. White as fuck, guys.
But wait. I want to say this: is everybody also complaining about Friends being too white, Seinfeld being too white? Like, yo, what if that is just their experience when it comes to their life? Like, for example, if when I have a show, it's gonna be probably like 2 white people in the whole entire show. It's mostly be Spanish and black people. They're gonna say I'm racist. Oh, you racist? There's some white people in your show. Blah 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 blah. So it's just that person's experience. If they didn't have no black friends, it happens. I don't have no white friends, but that don't make me a racist. I love me some white boys, but it happens.
But that's the problem, though. But that's the problem when you don't have other points of views within your company at the top. One of the main reasons why, and Janelle, I'm gonna let you go in a second, is that WWE has put women of color on their board. Have put people of other people of color on.
They do it just
no. Hold on.
It's like Wayne Brady, black people on there. I've been saying this.
Wait. Because now you're bugging. Because I know one of them. One of them is not a Wayne Brady type of person. So you see, you just assume that. That's the problem with that. We all assume it's a certain type of person there. That's what I'm saying. But Janelle, go ahead. Because I had to get off real quick. Because I know one person that's on there.
I just wanted to move on because once again, I want to also get to know Alfred a little bit better. Because I've been waiting for this for 2 years. What is your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think I could do Mount Rushmore. It changes maybe every few years, but in general, like Mount Rushmore, I would say Shawn Michaels, my favorite of all time. Love Shawn Michaels. The Rock. Ric Flair has to be on there. And then
of course,
Stone Cold versus Hulk Hogan, which, I mean, some days I feel Stone Cold because he was a huge star, but Hulk Hogan did it like for a longer period of time, and more people know who Hulk Hogan is. I mean, it sucks what ended up happening with him and his legacy and whatnot. But in terms of Mount Rushmore, and I would like to get a fifth, I would like to put Booker T on there because I think Booker T is like a low-key, all-time great that people don't talk about enough. And not just in terms of like what he's done with his career and stuff like that. I think just longevity-wise that he was able to be so adaptable from WWE to WCW. I think there's something to be said about his career. If you go back and look at how he was able to be great in so many different companies, it's almost unprecedented, especially as a black man with the black tax.
First of all, I was watching, because I was watching like 3 years of Judgment Day last night, and I think it was Judgment Day 02 or 03 when he got added to the NWO. He said, Ric Flair added me to the NWO, and I said, what? When did that happen? So now I got to really go back and watch that whole thing and how that went down. So like, excuse me? Like, had a whole NWO shirt on and everything. It was wild. Like, I was like, what is going on here? So, better question. What?
AEW is Mount Rushmore. Anyways.
Whatever.
Anyways.
What got
you? Wait. Hold on. Why are you still a Hogan fan? Let me ask you why.
Okay, nobody said I was a Hogan fan. The question was, what's my Mount Rushmore? And listen, you can be part of their life. I'm not going to complain. I don't do the cancel culture thing. Listen, I did grow up a Hulkamaniac, okay?
We all did. We all did.
Okay,
We all
so
did.
if we're talking about the Mount Rushmore, are we going to pretend he didn't exist? Like, let me tell you something right now. I love me some Muhammad Ali. If it ever came out that Muhammad Ali did some incendiary things where he had to be canceled, he's still on my Mount Rushmore of boxing. I'm not going to change history and act like we got to cancel this guy. Like Hulk Hogan, as terrible as his legacy is, and if you think Hulk Hogan is the only legend, like there's a lot of legend that a lot of people, love and cape for and whatnot who, have very questionable pasts. So if you think Hulk Hogan's the winner, that's another thing. But a Mount Rushmore of wrestling, of who are the top 4 wrestlers of all time, and you're not going to put, Hulk Hogan in terms of star power like that, that's ridiculous.
You know what? What is your personal Mount Rushmore? How about that? Let's think about personal to your heart. What is it?
Okay. I would still put Shawn Michaels and The Rock on there. I don't think it would change too much. Shawn Michaels, The Rock, Ric Flair, and then maybe Booker T does get in the top 4, but he could be Stone Cold Steve Austin because I grew up in the Attitude Era too, and I love me some Stone Cold Steve Austin, just like the Stone Cold Steve Austin poster on the back when he became immortalized at WrestleMania 13.
But by the way, say those first 2 again. Shawn Michaels and who?
Shawn Michaels and The Rock.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So since HBK is your fave, which era of HBK you feel like was better? Do you feel like it was?
Good question.
Are we talking about druggy HBK, or are we talking about I Found God HBK?
No, I don't remember him as druggy HBK, but yes, the druggy HBK who wore the top. I didn't, as much as I love Shawn Michaels, he was having better matches when he was I Love God HBK. He really learned. He was definitely having better matches. And he had the Kurt Angle match at WrestleMania 21, the Undertaker match at WrestleMania 25, 26 that I saw live. He was definitely having better matches because he learned how to work smarter and learn how to use his athleticism in a smart way.
Because he wasn't high.
Yeah, and he wasn't high. But I grew up with the 90s Shawn Michaels, and I love those promos.
It's okay.
And the promos from the DX Shawn Michaels where he was edgy and saying whatever he wanted, and he was funny. The God Shawn Michaels lost his edge a little bit. 90s Shawn Michaels lost his smile. 2000 Shawn Michaels lost his edge. But they're both great wrestlers, and they're both. I love both versions.
They're both great versions, but God Shawn Michaels work rate. He came back and he was just like, "Yo, Jesus protected me."
Come on, B. Come on, B.
Oh, was it 01 SummerSlam?
You got baptized. Come on, dog. When you get baptized, your power goes tenfold, dog. I'm telling you, I've been baptized. I'm telling you, my strength is like 10 men. I'm telling you, God, be baptized. Come on.
I want your opinion on this. NXT. Tons of releases has happened recently on NXT. And there's been a rumor going around. I think it was Wheeler from FTR, because somebody tweeted if Bret Hart had Shawn Michaels' job, NXT wouldn't go downhill.
Whoa. What
are your thoughts?
Listen, I don't know about. Listen, Bret Hart would never have Shawn Michaels' job because he says a lot of things about Triple H, and that would mean that Bret Hart would have to work with Triple H, and I don't think that would be a good working relationship. I don't know if I agree about that, and I don't know much about Bret Hart as a wrestling executive. Bret Hart is a wrestler. He's a guy who lives, eats, sleeps. He loves wrestling, but I've never seen a sample size of Bret Hart as an executive. And even Shawn Michaels is kind of in the early development stages of him being an executive, him being management. So the jury's still out on that. So I don't know how you can unequivocally say that, especially because we don't know what Bret Hart's experience is as a wrestling executive in that role.
So what do you think went wrong with NXT? Because a lot of people are trying to figure that.
Or is there anything wrong with NXT?
Because
a lot of people will sit here and be like, oh, they let go of this, that, and the third. But are they letting go of the people that they're using? Or are they letting go of the people that they're not using so that they can go and be great somewhere else?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That might be it. A lot of the people who were let go were either some of them, like Bronson Reed was just fresh off a push, but they hadn't done much with him in a month. And Mercedes Martinez was off TV and whatnot. And it does look like they're going through a shift. I think it's been a little overblown that people are saying NXT is dead. I think because there's so many releases for so many people that were shocking that now people are saying NXT is dead. But I think NXT is somewhat being sabotaged to a degree. I think NXT was just fine the way it was. I think they did a good job job of creating a television product. Like nobody would have ever imagined this for NXT when it first started. It's kind of a developmental. They were doing those wacky competitions. And then somewhere along the line, they retooled it and they messed around and got a multi-million-dollar television deal to appear on USA Network. And they were doing just fine. But now I think it's residual of Vince McMahon being mad that they lost the Wednesday Night Wars. It's just between Karrion Kross going on Raw and losing, between all these guys getting released. And I'm hearing Triple H didn't have much say in this. I feel like NXT is being sabotaged from within WWE. And I don't think much was wrong with it. But I don't think it's dead the way a lot of people think it is. I think they're going to find their way once they retool and once they rebuild themselves as whatever they're doing. And I like the fact that they're actually going in a direction of bigger wrestlers. You know, I'm not anti-small guy. But when wrestling is great, you know, there's a lot of wrestlers are just larger than life. And you see them on TV and they attract you to it. And it's just part of the culture of pro wrestling to have big guys there, so I have no problem with that.
Okay.
All right. I gotta do something like I want to see your pushback, but why do wrestling fans have a weird exception to big guys? I feel like it's kind of weird. Like a lot of wrestlers, like if he ain't big, he ain't this, that, third. But yet, when you go to other sports, you love the smaller guys. You love the Floyd. You love the Nate. You love the Spud Webbs. You love the Drew Brees. So why not in wrestling?
Because Vince McMahon, it's Vince McMahon's vision of wrestling is to have big. Vince McMahon is a bodybuilder. Triple H is a bodybuilder. They're very partial. And I completely agree with you, Mr. Black. These are points I made in my most recent video about how the Manny Pacquiao's, Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz are two welterweights of 170 pounds. They fought for a fake championship. They just made up the BMF title, and it drew one of the biggest buy rates UFC had that year because both of these guys are stars. Charisma comes in all shapes and sizes, and wrestling is fake. So if you see a charismatic guy and you want to capitalize on it, do that. Tom Cruise is like 2'7", yet he's one of the biggest movie stars in the world because they play to his strengths.
Kevin Hart. I have no
problem with that. But it just in wrestling, it's because Vince McMahon and WWE are the industry leaders, and it was built on Hulk Hogan. It was built on Bruno Sammartino, the bigger guys. So now there's just this belief among everybody, or a lot of people in wrestling, that you have to be a big guy in order to succeed, which is not true at all.
But I feel like a lot of people now in this generation don't want to get that big. Because I was talking to what's the dude's name? The 5'2" player, Anthony Bowen. When I first met him,
Anthony Bowen.
Diesel. A year later, I said, "Yo, Aaron, why you trim down?" He said, "Because I can move better. I feel better." So it's kind of like the bigger guys. Not everyone want to be that big no more. So can you blame guys who want to be smaller and able to be agile? Like my brother said earlier when he talked to Muscle Malcolm, you can't fit regular clothes when you're so big. So it's kind of like, do you blame the people for kind of scaling down for health reasons wise? Because not everybody's on steroids no more because easily detected. So again, why is it like a weird session for like these bigger wrestlers? And you know that small wrestlers like the HBKs and all of that could go in the ring. I kind of don't understand that.
Well, I think it's because we haven't seen anybody else that's really like had the complete package in a while. Well, I think Adam Cole has a complete package. Well, he's not a big dude, but he's just charismatic as fuck. Yeah, but I don't think we get too many of those. Like you speak about this new generation, it's all focused on moves. It's all focused on like the in-ring stuff. So they're lacking on the charisma that you talked about, brother. Like that charisma, that showmanship. The only person I see outside of like that is like Ricky Starks. I keep talking about him. I think he's the complete package.
Yeah,
I think it's the charisma that's missing. So because you don't have the charisma, you make it up by being a big ass motherfucker. that you can be this presence. Because we can go back to Brock. Remember Brock? Before they gave him Heyman, they tried to talk on the mic. You're like, what the fuck? But you mad big, so you could obviously whoop some ass. So I think that's what it is. That it's a crutch, more or less. And it's more showmanship.
Right. So
you don't need the charisma because, to be honest, this generation of wrestlers is lacking that charisma department.
I definitely agree, though. But let me ask you a question. You know, you're in wrestling. Are the trainers really going in and really breaking down how, boom, when you go to Performance Center, right? Back in the day, you had Dusty. You had other people who are masters at mic work. So now in the indies and these other wrestling schools, Are they teaching these proper mic works? Are they teaching them how to do social media? Are they making do the little stuff? I'm asking you, so Wilkins, because you're training, and other schools. Are they doing that?
Well, I'm trained by Amazing Red. So
and he was not the greatest on the mic.
But the thing he said, if you want to be better than me, you have to get your mic skills. You have to get your mic skills up. But that's what he said, because but let's talk to these guys. You guys, we all watch the product. What would you rather? If somebody's big as shit, don't you, when you see them on screen, like, oh, who is this guy? Don't you? Yeah. Like Amos.
Oh, that big guy in the breakout tournament. I was like, who is this big guy from Syracuse?
Yeah.
My new favorite wrestler.
I was like, who's this nigga from Syracuse? Excuse me.
But that caught all your eye, though.
Yeah. I mean, anybody.
But it catches your eye when you see a big dude. You go,
I think to be fair, everyone has their vision of what size and what moveset and what presence that they particularly like. Like for me, the boys know I'm super big on technical wrestlers. Like the Daniel Bryans, the Chris Benoits, the Chris Jerichos, all that, Dean Malenko, all that. I love it. Always loved it as a kid. But also, too, I can always look and be like, oh, who's this larger than life? When Brock first came out, and I was just like, who this? Why is he so big? And then he got bigger when he came back. I was like, who is this? Or even when Braun first came out and didn't say a word and came out with the Wyatt family, you was just like, who is this? Like, it's always more about what you're more looking for as the fan. Like, everybody has a different viewpoint and a different vision of what they like. Like, some people like smaller guys versus big guys. Some guys like bigger guys versus smaller guys. But it's just more of, I think, of a personal thing. It's not so much of a general thing.
I think, but what catches your eye, though, first, is the look.
Oh, it's always going to be the look and the size. And it's also going to, but actually, it's also the presence. Because look back on when Jericho debuted. A countdown happened. The Rock was in the ring. Granted, he got a huge assist from The Rock. I will say that. But a countdown went down. Okay, relax. A countdown went down, and he literally had his back to hard cam and came out and spun around. And now you're intrigued. Now you're captivated. So it really is more of, I think it's more of a presence thing than it being about size and it being about what you actually do in a ring when you first catch eyes. Like, for me, it's just like, what's memorable? What's something that's going to make you be like, oh, remember when? Like, if you can tell somebody, remember when? And they be like, yeah, that's how you know, like, that moment became something bigger and larger than life.
And I will say, another thing that kind of hurts little guys, especially in terms of making wrestling mainstream and connecting with people who don't watch normally and getting them to draw in, is that, okay, we like the Floyd Mayweathers and we cited like the Nate Diaz and whatnot, but there are weight classes in boxing and in MMA to where they're big stars because they're beating a lot of guys in their weight class. If you have a small guy in wrestling, Adam Cole is your champion, and somebody tunes in, I'm watching with my friend, he sees big-ass Omos, and he's not the champion. It's like, you're telling me that this 6-foot white boy, Adam Cole, this guy's the champion, and that big guy can't beat him? No, this is fake. I'm out of here. Like, wrestling is already caked and not being real, and people who don't watch it are watching it and trying to see, like, okay, what's not real about that? And I think it pokes a hole in the product, especially when you're booking the product. You can't have a short guy, and you can if you want, but a lot of bookers aren't going to just have a short guy beat a big guy clean. So that's one thing that already counts against you, is that you cannot be, quote unquote, credible as a smaller guy in the land of giants.
But the thing about it is, like, I'm going to push back on it, right? Because I've seen a ton of fights. I've been in a ton of fights. I can tell a lot of these wrestling fans haven't been in fights or seen a lot of fights. Because I've seen the shortest dude with the crazy hands knock out who's taller. I've been in fights where niggas was 6'3". I put in the work in. So it's all about your heart at the end of the day. Just like Janelle, my brother, says, it's all about if you can sell the match. Because honestly, Daniel Bryan versus Mark Henry in that cage match. No, was a picture of one of those two in that cage match. That nigga sold his behind off for that big boys. For every big boy you ever fought, you felt it. Him versus Brock. He make him believable. It's all about believability. Because if I'm a casual fan and I see Omos tall, I'm looking like, He in the ring though, but this Adam Cole dude, let me check him out because he wowed me. Why do you think that Rey Mysterio's been on the screen for so long? Because he knows how to sell a match. When he went against Big Show, yo, good ass match. So it's all about the ability to sell the match. Because at the end of the day, though, son, I have people who came to John and said, they said, yo, that dude Marquis, prolific. I thought that they're gonna be them big boys because the believability in the ring. And a lot of that art of selling is getting lost because, yo, it's all about how can I get to the next spot? You understand? Like, for example, you take a big-ass boot, the next thing you pop back up. I'm looking like, why they sell that crap, B?
Yeah.
Why you think AJ's so successful? Why you think so? Because he knows how to sell a match within the ring. And that's the problem.
I think one of the biggest is the look test that you just said, Alfred. It's the look test. It's looking and seeing what it is. Because I always bring up the story because we do viewing parties, and at a bar or whatever in New York City, we do it for every WWE pay-per-view. And I remember the first time we did one at one of the bars. This guy was just sitting there, and he's like, "I haven't seen wrestling in mad long. What's going on here?" And this was years ago. This was when CM Punk. This was Survivor Series, I think it was. It was CM Punk and The Rock was around. And the guy was just like, that guy's going to beat The Rock?
Yeah.
Because he got that different. That's why.
No, hold on. It's the look. It's the initial look. And you speak about Nate Diaz, you speak about Mayweather, you speak about all these smaller guys who are in other sports. You can even speak about Izzy from MMA. What do they all have in common? Or McGregor, what do they all have in common? They're charismatic as fuck. You talked about the Jericho situation, Janelle. The reason why it caught us, they sold us for like a month with the countdown. And when Jericho came out, he also has lifts on because Jericho's short. So there's a reason. Let's remember that. He came out with the help of The Rock and cut fire promo. He sold himself. The presence is one thing because he had the jacket on, he had everything on, but he sold it. So the initial thing is the eye test. When you go, holy shit, this is a big motherfucker. What's he about to do? When you get past that, it's the mic skills. That's what it really comes down to. But the initial thing is you got to understand when you see somebody big, when you see a superhero type of thing, because remember, we're selling superheroes and supervillains in wrestling. They're going up against each other. Big, meaty men going up against each other and trying to take each other down.
Wow. So, Alfred, what got you into writing? Like, how did your journey in writing and contributing to all these different platforms start for you?
Well, I would listen to, and it kind of speaks to what kind of brought us together today. I would listen to all the podcasts. Like I love the behind the scenes aspects of wrestling and, reading the dirt sheets, listen to podcasts. But I felt like I was getting the podcast from one person's view. Like I always felt like they all agreed on the same things. They always agreed what same wrestler should be pushed. There's always this mold of wrestler who's getting underutilized, and they always had the same talking points. And there were always things that I would think that it's like that I wouldn't hear represented, whether it was about wrestling, the product, whether it was about Black culture. There would be things that would happen on wrestling, even like when the New Day was around, that they would reference things of Black culture that it would go completely over everybody's head. It wouldn't even get picked up on in terms of what they were saying. So I just decided, like, maybe I should start talking about this to see if I can reach an audience who thinks this, a similar way, or can at least engage me in this way, because I felt like it was very monolithic, the pro wrestling podcasts and whatnot. I felt like I was listening to the same podcast over and over. So I started just kind of writing, and then it just kind of went from there. And I just started writing, and I got an opportunity with Bleacher Report, and then that led to the Forbes thing, and I've just been writing ever since.
All right. Yeah, like are you the only Black guy that contributes, like that talks about wrestling for Forbes, or like is it like a team of you guys?
Actually, no, there's multiple. There's one other guy who used to, but he now switched over to, now he just talks about exclusively video games. So there was one guy who would occasionally contribute, but in terms of being on the beat, yeah, for sure, it's only me. And I got there because I was with Bleacher Report, and my editor, she really understood wrestling, and I really like working with her because wrestling is a very unique form of sports entertainment, as you guys know, and not everybody really understands it. So I didn't want to work with somebody who didn't really know what was going on. And she was really good at curating the content and kind of pitching stories and me bouncing off her. And so she got a job with Forbes. She went over there to do the same thing. And I just went over there with her to kind of cover wrestling because I trusted her working with her. So she offered me a job, said, hey, you should come over here. And I thought about it and I went over there. And it was just a really smooth transition, which I don't think would have been the same thing if I would have stayed for too long at Bleacher Report.
How long have you been at Forbes?
Since 2015 now, so about 6 years.
Yeah, so I think that's what I think at 2017 I found out about you.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was like,
you kept a job after the pandemic. That's a blessing right there, man.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So where are you originally from?
I'm from. Well, I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but then I'm from Northern California. It's like Chico, California. I'm a Bucks fan too. We won the championship.
Yeah, I was about to say, are you a Bucks fan?
Hey, yeah, for sure.
So I really don't. So the thing with Milwaukee though is there's a lot of black people there. Like, don't let Wisconsin like be the blanket. Like, there is hella black people in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee is like the Atlanta of Wisconsin. It's like a
really
the Midwest. Yeah.
And not just black people. There's a lot of communities of African people. Like my parents are Liberian, and so there are a lot of Ethiopians. I mean, I don't remember living in Milwaukee. I was only there for like 3 years, but there's a lot of like Ethiopians, Nigerians, Liberians. They do have their hubs of like African communities there.
But that's like that.
So what do you say that is
Chicago and Detroit is like that, where they have a lot of like immigrants of people of color that live up there in the Midwest area.
Absolutely.
That's bars, man. So, all right, top 5 matches.
Oh man, top 5 matches. Okay.
And they all can't be with HBK. Let me be clear.
Well, okay, one of them is Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. WrestleMania 25 is on there. I would put Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle. I used to for the longest time at WrestleMania 21. That was great, but that's not on my top 5 anymore. I like CM Punk versus John Cena, just because in addition to being a great match, I thought they told a great story and they just did a good job building to a fever pitch. A lot of times for me, a match is more than just the match itself.
Wait.
Like
What's your match? What's your match? At Money in the Bank? Or
yes.
Monday Night Raw?
No. That was a great thing. That's the difference. That Monday Night Raw match was just a great wrestling match where there was no story that was being told. It was really them trying to show up The Rock because The Rock was going to WrestleMania and they wanted to show everybody how good they were. So that was just wrestling. But the best match or the better match than that I thought was a Money in the Bank match because there was a story being told that was like both real and somewhat worked, and it kind of went up until the last moment. So I thought they did a great job with that. But to name 5 matches, okay, listen. The New Day versus the Usos is a very underappreciated, like iconic, like great match. If you go back and watch that match,
which one?
Hell in a Cell.
Yes.
Versus the Usos in Hell in a Cell was it's a match I still go back. I just watched it 2 weeks ago. I just went back and watched it from start to finish. It's an incredible match. Like it will not be because it just kind of happened in the swing of things. If you sit down in a box and watch that match, it's incredible. New Day versus the Usos in Hell in a Cell. I thought that was amazing. So we're at 3. Listen, Kenny Omega versus Okada. I was pretty late. As much as I did like those series of matches, it wasn't until that 4th one that they had that I thought was one of the greatest matches ever. I really did like that Kenny Omega Okada number 4. And then you know what? There was a match I saw recently that I thought was one of the greatest matches I saw. It was Kenny Omega versus Ray Phoenix. I think Ray Phoenix might be my favorite wrestler in AEW. I thought Kenny Omega and Ray Phoenix had like a perfect wrestling match that was really incredible in terms of a great match.
It just sucks though that Ray Phoenix is an injury prone out of the 2 duos that they have, so it's always off on, so they can't really lean on him. I think the way that they want to, or that they could, because of the uncertainty of like, is he gonna hurt himself again? Is he not? Question: when do you think Big E's gonna cash in?
That's a great question, and they have teased that he's doing it with Roman Reigns, which would be fine. It would be great if Big E's the guy who beats Roman Reigns. I think that would be so great for his career. I feel like they would be forced to kind of do right by him if they had him be the guy who beats Roman Reigns, who's invincible. Roman Reigns has not been pinned in 600 days in WWE, so Big E's the guy to do that. I would love it. But I think they missed an opportunity to do that with Bobby Lashley. I thought that's what they were going. I thought it was perfect timing that Bobby Lashley destroyed Kofi Kingston. He destroyed Xavier Woods. Xavier Woods still hasn't gotten his title shot, though, for beating Bobby Lashley a couple months back. But I thought after Bobby destroys Xavier and Kofi, then Big E comes and says, you beat my friends. Now you got to go through me. Pick on somebody relatively your own size. That's what I thought they were doing. But when he catches in, I hope the night after WrestleMania, whenever they're done doing what they're doing with the Roman Reigns and The Rock, because that's what he's being protected for, is WrestleMania 38, which is in Inglewood, not Hollywood. Don't get it effed up. It's not Inglewood. It's WrestleMania Inglewood, not WrestleMania Hollywood.
It's in the hood.
Yeah.
It's in the hood.
Absolutely. I've had an article because it was supposed to be like last year. I've had an article in the Chamber about how WrestleMania is going to be in the black enclave of Inglewood, not Hollywood. So whenever we're at WrestleMania season for that, it's coming out. But I think the night after WrestleMania Inglewood, Big E cashes in.
SoFi Stadium's in Inglewood?
Hell yeah, it's just
So not fun fact, but like really, really like crazy. So when the stadium, like I think either first opened or right before they opened, they had a whole dead body right in front of the stadium, by like where the pools were, by like because like where the stadium is, it's like
I remember you said that,
by like pools. And because I'm really big into football, so that's how I knew about this, because it was right before they started the season last year, and literally had a whole dead body right in front of the stadium, and then everybody was wondering like, well, how does this property value just increase around this area when it's in the middle of the hood? And then like
basically, so then that's your question. So the stadium is kind of similar to how the White House is not blocking the hood, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
well, the White House actually isn't really by the hood per se, because White House is in the southeast, and Southeast DC is the hood. So
I mean, everybody that I know who lives there personally says that. They always say the White House is not too far from the hood. So
it's not too far, but it's not. No,
but Janelle, you can't say I'm not from there though. Like you can't say that.
Both my best friends lived in DC for 6 years. So no, I'm what I'm saying is that the White House is kind of in the backyard of the hood. SoFi Stadium is in the hood.
It is in the hood.
It's the same
thing for now in terms of like Inglewood is getting kind of gentrified, which I have mixed feelings about gentrification, but like maybe 5-10 years from now, this isn't going to be the same Inglewood. But for now, it is definitely very close and within the hood. But they're already building like hotels and stuff.
So it's basically like Barclay. How Barclay in the beginning was they basically went in the hood and stuff like that.
And they gentrified that whole area.
Okay, so it's like Barclay. Okay, cool.
Give it 5 years, this will be just like that. Inglewood will be, and you've already seen I'm already seeing a lot of white people moving in Inglewood, and you know what I mean? The fact that they just have 5-10 years ago, you would have never even seen them say Inglewood, but it's starting to happen.
Are they changing the name too to like the Wood or something of that nature? Like to change it to like a more gentrified name?
That's my movie. Don't respect my movie like that, B. Don't respect the one like that.
They used to call it South Central. They don't even call it South Central anymore. They started calling it South Los Angeles. So they're not even calling it South Central.
That's what I'm saying. They're probably going to call it like Idlewood or something. They're going to change the name.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the same like they did in Harlem. Like they have north of Harlem and south of Harlem. So it's weird. It's just it's beyond us at this point. It's like, okay.
So is there Starbucks yet? So somebody just said, is there Starbucks yet over there?
No, you said Starbucks was.
Definitely, yeah. There's a
but then again, I can't front on Starbucks. I can't front on Starbucks because they be having the whole hood in there because they hired all of us, B. So I always have love for Starbucks, B, because they taught us about different sizes and different languages. They taught us how to make cappuccino.
They can say grande.
Grande is the same thing across the board. They all mean large. They just made it seem like we smart. When we walk in there, then we get a Betsy. Motherfucker, it means large. Grande means large.
What y'all saying though, right? Y'all say I pay for it. Boom. Programming.
I love me a Venti. Venti Frappuccino. Venti Juice de Leche.
Nah, I fucks with that nitro coffee though. That nitro coffee, that's cocaine in a bottle, B. That is cocaine.
That nigga's rich, that's why, B. Listen, man, that nigga's not rich to me. Like, I think the Dunkin' Donuts who hired me, a black brother in there, it's cheap. You get yourself a dark midnight coffee for $2.50. Come on.
It's a little rough. It's a little rough though. Dunkin' Donuts is crack that got stepped on. But that's a different conversation.
Yeah, it is.
No, a coffee drinker broke it down to me. Starbucks is that pure cocaine. Pure. Like, you taste it, That's poppy shit. That's poppy shit. Dunkin' Donuts, that's that crack you stepped on a couple times, but it's still gonna hit. It's still gonna hit. That's the difference.
For a large for $2.50, you can't go wrong. Midnight Black,
Listen. Alfred gotta go to bed soon, so we gotta finish this episode.
That's a fact.
I got work in 4 hours.
What's one goal that you have for this year in wrestling?
Mm-hmm.
One goal that I have for wrestling, I feel like, my only goal when I started writing was I wanted to build any semblance of an audience, any consistency in terms of people to interact with. That I set my goals very simple. You know, I learned to set very simple goals so that you can achieve them and then just kind of go along that way. So I feel like I've achieved my goal a couple of times in terms of wrestling, but if there was like an ultimate goal that I have, I mean, I don't know. I think I'm here. I think I'm living it. I really do like, you know, I'm a stand-up comedian, so my ultimate goal is to do that exclusively while still being able to cover wrestling, because it's not like I go into an office or whatnot. I you know, just do it digitally from my office. But you know what? Maybe here's my goal in wrestling. I want to win an Emmy in wrestling, or win like a Peabody or a major award before any of these promotions do. So that the history can say that a black man won the first major award talking about wrestling before Vince did, before Tony Khan did. That's what I want to do. That's my goal. I'm speaking it into existence.
See, that's why because like
question.
Like 2 years ago, we didn't think about a wrestling show, and then boom, you know what I mean?
Right.
So.
I did.
So question, like, do WWE and other wrestling companies submit their work to the Peabody, all these awards for writing? Do they?
That's a good question. I can't speak on behalf of them. I would like to think somebody does, but I don't think they think it's worth it. I think in terms of like these awards, there's a bit of a sanctimoniousness to them where they're just like holier than thou. So maybe they look at wrestling and they think it's lowbrow, and that'll discourage a lot of people. But now that I'm just kind of talking about it, why not? Why, you guys should submit to the goddamn Peabodys and to the Emmys and stuff like that. And see, because they do now award like podcasts and stuff like that when it comes to awards like that. So we should start really just kind of submitting our work and seeing what happens.
Nah, we're not gonna win it because like we too rough. Like
let's
the stuff
all
I
the
do,
contribution.
the two of us, nah. Like we too rough. Like I dropped the N-word, all of that. You know, I talk about Wayne Brady hiring. They don't hear that. So I automatically disqualify us. My bad, y'all.
But question, could you talk about your before we go? I want to know about your comedy career. Like you're in like Cali, LA-ish, like that's the grind. Like why did you decide to go into comedy? Like, tell me a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about it.
You know, wrestling actually kind of brought me into comedy. I used to do this show on Bleacher Report called WWWTF, and it was like Weekend Update for wrestling, where I would just took all these crazy wrestling stories and I would make jokes about them and just, you know, riff on them. And when I was doing the early episodes, I thought they were trash. I hated them. Like my least favorite day of the week was Thursday because that's when it would come out. And I would watch them and I'd just be like, this is not funny. I'm just rambling on. Sometimes I'd stumble on something. I just didn't think it was funny. I thought it was horrible, but they seemed to like it. So I just decided, like, I need to learn how to tell a joke. I just need to learn how to pretend to be a comedian or whatever. So I bought a book on how to write a joke. And I read, and that, like, I've never read, I like reading. Reading is great, but I've never read a book so fast. I've never read a book so many times, like over and over and over. And I just got sucked into I didn't know that there was a whole formula, that there are all these different types of ways to write a joke. So I really became obsessed with writing jokes. So when I do the show, I started doing it to where I would write 50 jokes before I'd even pick one. And I picked the best 5 jokes. And the show actually really got good, I thought. We really built an audience and did a good job with the show. And from then, when the show ended, I decided that I wanted to keep writing. I want to just keep writing jokes. And it went from just writing about wrestling topics. Then I would write about everyday topics that were happening in the news. Then I would just start writing about my life. And it just turned into, well, maybe I should start performing these. And it just led me to stand-up. And when I started doing stand-up, I just loved it. I just never wanted to stop.
How's it coming up
with your career choices? Wait. How your parents feel about your career choices? I want to hear that.
Well, they're very supportive. I mean, especially in terms of covering wrestling and stuff like that, because they're immigrant parents who want me to be like, you know, doctor, lawyer, accountant, or whatnot. But that's the thing. I was an accountant. I had like a steady, solid day job for a couple of years before I got into this. So I had done, you know, right by my parents and what they wanted, what I thought I wanted to do with my life. So by the time I got into it, it's not like it was this passionate thing that I'm going to drop out of school and go do this. It was like I already kind of had my life together and I had this extra time, and that extra time, that hobby turned into what I do. So the thing about parents, as long as you make money doing it, as long as you're able to support yourself, that kind of helps you be able to do it and helps them support you doing it. But, you know, I know where you're coming from in that, because my parents, I don't think when I first started talking about, I've been writing about wrestling, they're like, okay, that's great, but just make sure you keep on to your day job and, you know, you're not You're going off doing this wrestling thing all the time.
That's dope. That's dope.
Listen, in my
So
mother,
you guys have any last questions?
No.
Oh,
No, that's it.
How we explain wrestling to aliens?
Oh, that's a great question. That is a great question. I feel like the way I do, I try not to say as much because that question can be answered when I have a lot of friends who don't watch wrestling or used to watch wrestling, or we'll be hanging out and they'll come over and I'll be watching wrestling and covering it when they're there. So I try not to tell them. I try to sit down and show them. Explaining wrestling is just so nuanced. I would need like a visual aid. I'd need to show them what's happening, and then I would explain it. And I would just really say the simplest way I could say it. It's a soap opera for men. Or it's not even just for men anymore. You know, obviously more people, it just does skew in terms of what it historically has been. But it's essentially a certain version of a soap opera where there's drama. It's a reality show. It's no different than the Muppets. It's just a bunch of characters, and some of them you want to see, some of them you don't. But in terms of explaining it to an alien who maybe doesn't speak our language and maybe doesn't understand, I would show them some of my favorite matches, but I would show them the build up to it. And I would show them week by week. Here's week 1. Here's week 2. Here's week 3. And then he lost his girlfriend, and now they're going to fight over her. And I think that they would get it. If they watched it, they gave it 4 weeks of some of the best storylines. I think anybody could get into wrestling.
Last question. What's the one thing that's missing in wrestling today?
A transcendent star. The Rock, you know, a Stone Cold type person, a John Cena type person, an alpha. Even the biggest stars in wrestling right now, God love Roman Reigns, and he's a big wrestling star. I feel like we have a lot of big wrestling stars, and nobody who, if I was dating a girl and I said, oh yeah, you know Roman Reigns, she'd be like, who? You know, somebody who my mom knows. That's what's missing in wrestling. Somebody who is hot right now, who my mom can tell you who they are. Because my mom knows The Rock. My mom knows Stone Cold Steve Austin. She knows, you know, all these big stars who came before, but she cannot tell you anybody who's in wrestling right now. And she doesn't watch. She hates wrestling. So if somebody who hates wrestling could tell you who Roman Reigns is, that's what it's missing. Is that a star of that level that you cannot deny?
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that WWE kind of cut the wings of their superstars?
Yeah, I think in some ways WWE has. I don't know if it's on purpose or not. I think what happened with WWE is they became more interested in being Disney and being known as the company first. It used to be wrestling was built on you have your one star, he's going to draw you all the money, or she's going to draw you all the money, and you're going to build around that star. And now it's become about the brand. It's become about WWE getting TV deals, WWE being the front-facing brand. WWE is the star. So all the wrestlers are interchangeable, it feels like sometimes. And I think that's what hurts in terms of them being able to stand out. I don't think there's any incentive for WWE to make these wrestlers stand out, because then you have to pay them more money. Then they can get an ego and maybe want to go home like Stone Cold Steve Austin has in the past. And you can't really interchange them in and out as major stars. The fact that WWE is
that point that you said. I like the 2 points that stood out to me the most was you got to pay them more. And it's like they're scared that they might walk out.
Yes.
Because Sasha Banks did it recently, and like those kind of things. So you kind of have to like, dang, bro.
For sure.
I got a lot of thinking to do. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Well, Alfred, it has been an honor and a pleasure for you to join us.
You need to come back, dogs. You need to come back, dogs.
But anytime you're in New York, if you are, let us know.
Yes.
Totally would love to do this in person. But in the meantime, let the viewers and listeners know where to find you.
Absolutely. And I had a great time, guys. I can't wait to come back on this. This has been great. I really love that you guys do this, and I was glad to find out.
We do it in person. We do it in person, dogs.
For sure. I'll plan to be in New York very soon. Trust me. Within the next 6 months, I think I might have somewhere to be in New York. But
getting money,
like Survivor Series.
Wow, who knows? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe I'll find my way to New York. You know, comedy takes you crazy places. But at This Is Nasty on Twitter. Go on YouTube, Pro Wrestling Bits. Watch me on Wrestling Inc. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Fridays. And then Forbes, I post articles almost daily.
Awesome. Forbes is very lucky to have you. I was telling them years ago. I was like, oh my God, I think this is the only black guy that writes for Bleacher Report. That's how I only knew you. I was like, we got to get the black guy that writes for Bleacher Report. Like, that's it. And then when you moved to Forbes, I was just like, we still got to get him. Like, I don't care. Like, we got to figure this out.
Listen, like, this is my first time ever hearing about you and meeting you, because I stopped reading Bleacher Report years ago, personal reasons. But yo, man, this was one of my favorite interviews, dogs. You gotta come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a voice for us. Like, no, because I have a lot of favorite people. So yes, you know, like one of my favorite guests is Chisel Adonis, but thank you for writing for us. And I like the fact that you're not so caught up within your thoughts that you're able to be more open-minded. And we need more open-minded brothers within the industry to say that, yes, I may be black though, but I don't see the bigger picture. Brother man, thank you.
And you guys helped me with it. All you guys helped me in terms of the bigger picture. Even when there's pushback, that's an opportunity for me like, oh, I never thought about it like that. Oh, that's a good point, you know? And that's what all I ever wanted was people to have these conversations with. And that's why I'm so happy to be on a show like this.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on and taking time out today to do this.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. And I really think there should be an all elite white people part 2. Just putting that out there on the table.
Well, it might be here sooner or rather than later. Just stay tuned, everybody.
But phenomenal job, though.
As always, I am Janelle from HR, here with Wilkins and Mrblacc, and of course, Alfred from Forbes. Thank you so much for joining us this late evening edition of the Jobbertears Podcast Lounge. Hashtag Black Excellence, hashtag we are out.
I was over, got the hands in motion. If you go with rolling, no need to focus. Traveling states and over oceans, you gotta wait till your coast chosen. Trying to have lines outside the show like Harry Potter releases at Barnes & Noble.